Hello everyone. I really hope that this video ends up doing okay and it doesn't end up fully demonetized or taken down, because today I'll be discussing the anime that popularized tentacle. Now, I thought that tentacle wouldn't have originated in Japan at first because, well, that would just be too obvious, and I also didn't want to be stereotypical, but it did, with the earliest examples known being way back in the 18th bloody century, so Japan has had their crazy fetishes for a long time. It was a couple of years later when a certain illustration known as The Dream of the Fisherman's Wife was created by a man named Hokusai in 1814, which captured the foreign world's attention. In it, we see a woman having relations with an octopus. Its tentacles were wrapped all around her, and he's sucking on her octopus. This was one of the influences for Toshio Maeda, who also goes by his supervillain name, Tentacle Master. However, it wasn't just Japan's past experiences with the genre that inspired the Tentacle Master, it was also because of censorship laws that he was forced to work around. You see, when the Axis powers lost World War II, the Allies imposed government reforms which included strict censorship laws against pornography, but this law never branched out to include all types of sex, only really focusing on the typical, vanilla, unmodded sex. So all the Tentacle Master had to do was avoid drawing a normal penis, with tentacles, something thin and long, much longer than average, can go up someone, and the excuse would be that it's just part of a creature, not its genitalia. It seemed like the lawmakers were too naive to catch on to one of the things human beings excel at the most: imagining up obscure fetishes. What's crazy is that this law is enacted still to this day, but my question is, what's even the fucking point? Because nowadays Japan is the second leading country in the industry anyway. 10% of its worldwide revenue belongs to them. They are literally the pioneers of animated sex and disturbing lively shit. There's no turning back at this point, okay? So just uncensor this bollocks already. This is a pointless battle! But this strict censorship gave rise to unique workarounds, especially when it came to Maeda's manga, Urotsukidoji, which was both written and conceived by him. Its publication in 1985 was what really broke the genre out of Japan, opening the eyes of many to how deep and depraved the disgusting desires of humanity could get. Its straight-to-video adaptation in 1987 became a common sighting in large video store chains in the West. Multiple versions were released though, due to Western censorship. But for the purposes of this review, I decided to watch the uncut, uncensored version just to experience what this was intended to first be like. I also read the manga, which I thought would be a short read since it has only 15 chapters, but oh my god, no it was not. It was such a fucking slog to get through. I couldn't finish it, okay? I read an interview where Maeda does actually take pride in the story, so I also wanted to take it seriously, but I felt like there was barely any story in it. It felt pointless for me to continue reading it because it was just I wasn't going to waste my time. This made me second guess doing a video on this, because I'm not just going to talk about straight up porn. Most of the manga went like this: a scene, then a teeny weeny bit of a story in order to have a minute reasoning for the next scene, and so on and so forth. It also read like there was no planning behind it. Characters and scenarios were just getting added without any cohesion or indication of them advancing the plot. It really felt like the Tentacle Master was just adding shit in because an idea popped into his mind that he thought would look really hot. It was so akin to someone tacking shit onto their ChatGPT story that it was crazy. But then I watched its anime adaptation, Urotsukidoji, Legend of the Overfiend, which is actually a collection of 3 separate OVAs merged to make one movie. This was the first movie from the original story. It was such a massive hit that there were multiple sequels. And luckily, the story in the anime adaptation was an improvement. for the simple fact that there was a clear effort taken, but unfortunately, Maeda didn't write it. It still wasn't good, mind you. The characters were still nonsensical shitheads and there were still so many despicable, deplorable sex scenes that took forever to get through. But the anime took this shit essentially crowbarred into the manga and inserted them in ways that flowed better. There were plot points that didn't lead to porn and had nothing to do with sex, with there being more of a focus on exposition and fight scenes, some of which interrupted the sex scenes. But at the end of the day, this is labeled as a hentai, so I'd imagine that its main demographic would be nothing but annoyed by the constant interruptions and wouldn't actually care for the story. I may have disliked the manga more, but at least its lack of story and higher focus on sex suited the target audience. At least, that's what I think. Because, and yes, I am proud to say this, I do not know much about hentai. Yes, I'm a very innocent, sweet, virgin saint, whatever the fuck you want to call me. So forgive me if hentai is in fact a very innovative form of storytelling that I just don't understand the intricacies of. But it's just another form of right? You fiddle diddle with yourself, you bust, and then you feel bad about what you just did. You wouldn't care about learning lore, reading long text scrolls, sitting through a recap at the beginning of each episode, watching people beat each other up. Unless it's some BDSM shit, which is not the case here. I'm confused because I have no idea who this anime is for. It's not necessarily for people who like storytelling, because there are too many elongated, graphic sex scenes that make you just sit awkwardly, hoping that they'll get it over with soon, and the plot in itself is not great. And it's not for people who are feeling horny, because there's too much story and lore that they want you to comprehend. I don't understand this, but I guess we could try to understand the So the first Urotsukidoji movie is about this prophecy about an all-powerful god called the Overfiend being reborn after 3,000 years. 3,000 years ago, he made the three realms. The Beast Realm, which is populated by superpowered humans who transform into furries. The Demon Realm, which is populated by the evil, gross race. And the boring-ass Human Realm. So I guess that humans didn't exist 3,000 years ago in this world. When the Overfiend is reborn, he is going to unify these realms, and no one fiddle-diddling with themselves gives a shit. We follow this guy from the Beast Realm called Amano, who has been searching for the Overfiend for 300 years and interrupting the sex scenes by fighting off anyone who may harm him. Seriously, when I talked about the sex scenes getting interrupted for exposition and fight scenes, I was mainly referring to this guy. He was basically designed to push the plot forward since no one else would. The story only exists because of him. He is joined by his super horny sister Megumi, and he watches her have sex with a horrific demon tentacle monster with worms coming out of its junk. No, he doesn't get off to it. He was just patiently waiting for her to get done because he wanted to talk to her. That's all. He's still a fucking weirdo though. He's also joined by this teeny weeny black guy, literal black guy, named Kuroko, who doesn't wear pants, so you can constantly see his itsy bitsy penis and balls. They are only a small circle and oval, but I'm gonna censor it anyway. And yes, of course we see him wanking off. It's really adorable and hilarious actually. Especially since he doesn't shove his head up a girl's vagina this time. You can also very clearly tell how 80s this anime is, with its typical 80s fashion and that corny ass 80s music with this guitar beat that keeps blaring and looping over and over and over in the background. Anyway, so those Beast Realm people are overseeing a bunch of students at this university because they think that one of them is the Overfiend. I mean, just because they aren't a bunch of high schoolers doesn't mean that this shit isn't still creepy. But unfortunately, on Wikipedia it says that they're in a high school though, which makes me think that it's either a mistake, which is what I kind of think since they aren't wearing uniforms, or worse, that these are actually high schoolers, and the English sub I watched made them university students instead to make this shit less weird. I really hope that this was just a mistake, but I wouldn't put it past Japan if it wasn't. At first, Amano thinks that the Overfiend is this guy named Urotsukidoji because he's this super sexy, tall, muscular giga chad who has tons of sex with multiple women all the time. He even makes the girl he smashes explode after he comes, which I noticed is the typical sign that someone is a demon in this anime. In fact, every single climax scene here is incredibly over the top. Crazy shit happens every time. The women they fuck explode, the dudes transform into some crazed demon, there's tons and tons of screaming like they're going Super Saiyan. Basically, the catalyst for most of the destructive events happen because of cum. Cum ruins everything. It turns out that Urotsukidoji is not actually the Overfiend, because he immediately dies after transforming into a big hairy demon. Even though he was the most popular student and everyone wanted a piece of him, no one gave a shit when he died somehow. No one was sad at all. That shit was dropped instantly.
Can't wait to see how they grieve over my death. What? They moved on immediately. Nobody says shit.
It turns out the reason why he turned into a demon in the first place was because he licked the blood off the true Overfiend, in a very sensual scene at that. He's even blushing, look. The true Overfiend is this loser called Nagumo. He has this massive crush on this girl called Akemi, who they call the school idol, which I guess means she's the most popular girl in school. She wears a fucking tissue for a skirt, by the way. I mean, I know anime, especially hentai, isn't really known for modesty, but I was surprised that I didn't see her ass 24/7. It's because she has no ass cheeks, and that's not me body shaming her. I'm sure they're bigger than mine. What I'm saying is that they literally never drew the lines that defined her ass cheeks. Her crotch also seems to be super far per body. I don't think they ever talked beforehand, but they immediately enter a relationship after Nagumo saves her from a demonic teacher that was tentacle raping her. Psych, Nagumo didn't save her. It was Amano. She even saw him with her own two gigantic anime eyes. Nagumo didn't do shit. He was on the floor. But he got the naked hug and got to be her boyfriend. Well, Amano never even gets a thank you from her. He never gets any sex from any soul. What the fuck? They are meant to be portrayed as this cute, inseparable, hashtag couple goals ass couple, but I don't buy it. Come on, Nagumo would spy on her and other girls in the girls' locker room while stroking his penis. And Akemi knew that he was hiding amongst the balls like a lunatic in order to hide his boner while looking at her crotch in a leotard. He also literally wanted to cheat on her within the first 5 minutes of their relationship. Also, fuck this guy Nagumo. He's meant to be the main character of this shit. But why the fuck would I root for such a gooner? Him wanking while spying on girls changing is literally the first scene in the OVAs. That's our first impression of him. I guess he's written like this so that the target audience for this shit could relate to him. He is morally reprehensible, just like most of the characters here. But you know a character is so horrible when I can tolerate those characters more. That's when I knew that Akemi was the worst fucking character in here. Just so fucking annoying. She's so bland too. If she was a perfume, she'd be deodorant. If she was a drug, she'd be Panadol. She's so whiny. Just like me right now, but I'm whining because she's whiny. She was whiny first. I'm not a hypocrite. Her voice was super annoying, and she says Nagumo-kun constantly in the most annoying way possible. Nagumo-kun. But at least she's not as brain dead as Nagumo-kun, because when thinking about cheating on Akemi, he's standing in the middle of the road, so of course he gets squished by a car. Another reason not to root for him. He's just a fucking dumb shit. Well, luckily he's dead. Until he comes back to life as the Overfiend fucks a nurse and then comes in her so hard that she explodes. Of course, but this one was done in a particularly disturbing manner, making me feel even worse for her. The rape makes him grow to 200 feet, with 100 tentacle-like penises shooting out of his crotch, and them having the ability to absorb people inside, therefore suffocating them to death, I guess. What a way to die, huh? By the way, this female nurse was the only female, period, operating on Nagumo. What a coincidence that she was the only person to stay back in order to do some paperwork. She was screaming a ton too, but no one heard her for some inexplicable reason, of course. Perhaps if one of the male nurses stayed behind, we'd get to see some gay sex. The second OVA focuses on another guy who has feelings for Akemi, called Nikki, who is the main villain of this part, and I actually feel really bad for him because he leads a life of zero happiness. He's a socially awkward, friendless incel who gets tormented by the other girls at the school. They had an orgy right in front of him, only for him to be forced to not watch nor join in, out of spite. At most, they made him eat one of their stinky, yucky, fungus-filled feet, therefore pandering to another fetish. His parents are also lunatics who beat him mercilessly. The only person nice to him was Akemi, which was why he was in love with her. That's a much better reason than Nagumo's, who just thought she was pretty and would spy on her in the motherfucking change room and stare at her crotch. At least Nikki had more decency. At first, at least. He comes to despise Nagumo for being with Akemi and is baffled as to why the fuck she would choose a clown like him. So he was basically living in hell without even being in the demon realm. So I understood as to why he sold his soul to a bunch of these freaky demons. But not before chopping his dick off and sewing a large green scabby disease-riddled radioactive-looking one onto his balls, of course. Well, at least he pulled out the cutting board for that. The demon dick basically gives him steroids and incredible confidence, giving him the ability to beat the fuck out of all his enemies and sex any lady under the sun. Except for his one true love out of all people, Akemi, who is a perfect little angel waifu who would never ever cheat on Nagumo ever. What? Says the guy who was hiding in the girls' change room just a few days ago. Sorry, I know I've said that like 5 times already, but look at this fucking gooberish hypocrite right here. And you're telling me that he instantly becomes a saint after getting his dream girl? Nah, it doesn't work that way. Trust. Fuck him, okay? Fuck you, Nagumo-kun! By the way, when Nikki's having a foursome, the girls for some reason don't notice his creepy alien penis. This includes when they're blowing him somehow. Like, how the fuck do they not? I bet it smells and tastes disgusting. What the fuck is wrong with them? In order to maintain his Giga Chad form though, he has to consume blood and cum, which is why he licked the cum off Akemi's face after Nagumo busted all over it. He didn't say no homo, which makes me have a theory that he's bi. I would feel bad for him, you know, for his unrequited love problems and having to drink cum and blood in order to be attractive when actual, naturally born Giga Chads don't have to do that. But he ends up kidnapping Akemi and raping her, which was very unnecessary. This causes Nagumo to crash out and transform into his Giga Chad demon form. Nikki does end up regretting his actions when something in him clicks and he has this powerful moment of realization. He thinks back to all the times Akemi was nice to him, but this part was immediately squandered because there was only one flashback, and it was a 3-second long one that we already saw. It was just of Akemi telling him to wake his ass up because school was over, so he can go back home to his parents who fucking hate him. She wasn't even being nice to him. She shut the door on him, look. What an asshole! They clearly couldn't be asked to make anything else, so they just inserted the only existing scene. Even though Nagumo had to kill him for self-defense purposes, he still feels extreme guilt to the point where he weeps and runs off. He thinks he's a monster and doesn't want to turn into a buff Giga Chad anymore. Well, unfortunately for him, he crashes out again in the final part, but on a much larger scale this time, and by that, I mean that he destroys the whole world. And this goes on for the majority of the third part's length. The final part barely has any sex in it. Sorry for those who bought this for a wank. And this would have been extra unfortunate for those who don't have a fetish for romantic or emotional sex, which is what they were at least going for here with Nagumo and Akemi. But I'm so sorry, I just think that they didn't develop any sort of bond at all. But most of all, I fucking hate these two gremlins, so the sex scene was just corny and forced to me. Sorry. Nagumo turns into his Giga Chad demon form during said scene, and turns into a colossal version when he busts inside in the most over-the-top coming scene probably in all of history. I know that I said before that all the climax scenes were crazy, but this one was extra intense. What a drama queen. He screams so loudly that it's heard worldwide, he grows to 900 feet tall, his privates grow to even longer, and he grows 100 of them again, and he destroys the earth. But I guess it does make sense as to why it's so dramatic, because him busting inside caused him to transform into a big-ass demon permanently, since Akemi ends up pregnant with the Overfiend. Yeah, it's a plot twist. It turns out that Nagumo was never the Overfiend after all. Instead, he was prophesied to be the father of the Overfiend. Okay, I'll give them props. I didn't expect that. The Overfiend decides if the human realm is good or evil. If deemed as evil, he's got his daddy, Nagumo, who's actually the demon of destruction, to murder the three realms in order for him to restart the world by scratch when he's reborn. Of course he judges us as evil. I bet the Overfiend's daddy cranking it in the girls' locker room contributed to that. But there are two other realms. It seems pretty bloody unfair to only put the fate of the whole world in our hands, especially since there is a demon realm where all they do is evil shit. The reason why this prophecy was a mystery up until it was too late was because Amano was high-key the worst person to search for him, because throughout his 300 years of dedication towards searching for this asshole, he was clueless about what the fuck the Overfiend was, and he never even tried to know until right now, when he's about to get resurrected. Yeah, that's right. So he probably has been wandering around aimlessly for bloody 3 centuries then? And to top this off, there was an easy way to find out throughout this whole stupid time. So it's not like there was no way to learn of the Overfiend's true intentions. But it's not really a big deal, right? He's just known for being this all-powerful god who is going to change the whole course of the world for all time. It would have been understandable if he was forced into this and never cared about him, which was the case in the manga, but they changed him in the anime, where he instead is obsessed with the Overfiend and has appointed himself to be his sworn protector. So they retained his ignorance about the thing he has been searching for the past 300 years, without making it make sense this time. He says that the only reason he wants to find and protect him is because he's prophesied to change the world, even though he admits he already likes the world as is. He doesn't even know if he'll make the world worse or better, but he thinks he's going to make the world better because I don't know. It seemed obvious though that he would make the world fucking worse. We are told from the start that he is going to unite the 3 kingdoms, which means that the evil racist demon realm is going to merge with the 2 good realms. How the fuck is that good? It also seems pretty unfair to unify us with those 2 realms. We're weak as fuck. We're clearly gonna have a bad time. Amano, you dumb fuck! Look mate, it's okay to admit that you just wanted to mess around in the human world for a couple 100 years. Amano only asked the Elder about the prophecy as an afterthought in the second part. I mean, like I said before, it's not like Amano took on this duty yesterday. This motherfucker had 300 years to ask! But the Elder had 1,000 years to figure this shit out. And yet, he also doesn't know what the prophecy fucking is too. What the fuck is going on? The fact that the Elder knows nothing shocks Amano, which means that for the past 300 years, he never knew that the most knowledgeable bastard in the realm was clueless about what the fuck the Overfiend did. The clear way to find out, something that the Elder could have done throughout the past 1,000 years, is to send someone into the future and then teleport their bitch ass back. But he only does that with Amano when the Overfiend is so close to arriving. Wait, hold on a second. That's that scary movie company sound logo thing. He also does this when he's on the cusp of dying. I mean, Look at him. He looks like he's melting. He's so fucking old that even his eyeballs are wrinkly. Off topic for a second, but I do think that his design is so cool. The Elder is so ancient that he cannot sustain a mana there for very long, making him ultimately miss out on discovering the Overfiend's prophecy. He also dies because of this. Well, rest in peace, but maybe if you did that when you were younger, like literally at any time in the past 1,000 years, this plan would actually work, and it wouldn't have taken your life. Y'all should have known this. I guess you did. What a waste of time. But there was this one character who knew about the Overfiend's legacy somehow, and it's this demon called He's at first presented as the bad guy because he's enemies with Amano, and he wanted the Overfiend to not resurrect when it was implied that that would be a good thing, but it turned out that he was right all along and he's actually a good guy. Suck Me Hard eventually does tell Amano what the Overfiend is, but it's as Nagumo is destroying the world. This is how we learn of the prophecy, but thanks for nothing, you useless fecker. You waited until the Overfiend actually became resurrected to tell him why resurrecting him is a bad idea? Maybe if you tried telling that shit to Amano instead of just fighting whenever you spotted him, maybe the truth would have been out sooner. Amano even asked him why he wanted the Overfiend dead, and he didn't even give a straight answer. Why the fuck not? Also, if you were a good guy, what was with all that evil laughing then? Nagumo remains as this massive monster and doesn't get defeated. Akemi becomes this entity that is fully controlled by her unborn child, the Overfiend. Well, she did snap out of it for a second, somehow, with the probable explanation being her pure and angelic spirit or some cornball bullshit like that. But nah, she's been controlled by the Overfiend and remains naked, which suits her more because she was naked for the majority of the time anyway, and had an A4 sheet of paper for a fucking skirt when she was clothed. The ending theme was funny, because this was meant to be a serious situation, but this cheery music plays in the credits. I guess this was fitting for me, since I was relieved that this was all over, but then I realized that I had to rewatch this again in order to finalize this stupid review. But this was better than the manga. At least the numerous changes actually helped it in some ways. I already said before that Amano was sexless and had zero interest in fucking, but in the manga, he was a massive sex-obsessed fiend who found every stupid excuse under the sun to have it. So he fitted in with every other character for real. He was also a gigantic, arrogant asshole. He even threw a baby in the river just because he didn't like them, and hated Kuroko's sheer presence, and always beat the shit out of him. But he wouldn't even dream of being that way in the anime, because there he was super nice and loves humanity. I'm glad that they made this change because he was extremely unlikable in the manga, and I dreaded whenever I saw him. Megumi and Kuroko were one of the characters shoehorned in the middle of the story, unlike in the anime where they're there from the start. It's better like this, since they barely did anything anyway. They were mostly just observers, so they didn't need any grand introductory scenes. Like everyone else there, Akemi was also obsessed with sex too. And yeah, they did change her design. They got rid of her strange hair bows. But seriously, she wouldn't shut up about sex. She became so obsessed with it after getting raped by that tentacle teacher. She enjoyed it so much that she kept coming back for more. In the anime, she was understandably traumatized by it, but then immediately got over it in 0.5 seconds, so what's even the point? This change also made sense because of the manga being more story-driven, but at the end of the day, she's a female, and females could never possibly escape at least getting naked in this shit. So she, along with every other girl, were just sex objects. They couldn't do much of anything else. Even Megumi couldn't do anything by herself and constantly had to be saved by Amano. I wouldn't even be complaining about this that much. I mean, hentai isn't exactly known for its display of women's rights, but we are supposed to buy that she's one of the most powerful beings in the realms.
She didn't do anything though.
Yeah, no shit that this was gonna be uncomfortable for me to watch, but it's not like I was catfished or anything. I knew what I was getting myself into. Doesn't mean I have to like it though. Well, I guess that the next OVA will tell us what happens next, but oh my god, if it's anything like this one, I really do not want to watch it. But if this video gets, let's say, 40 likes, I'll gladly hop on that, no question. Okay, that is it for this review. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. If you dislike this video, okay, fuck you. Yeah, fuck you, okay? I hope you get a fate worse than that nurse. I'm not joking about that. I'm being so deadass. I'm gonna go. Bye.